and welcome to this session. Let's chat about cybersecurity. My name is Ian Lowe, and I'm currently the Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity at NTUC Enterprise. Previously, I was also the Director of Government Cybersecurity Operations and Government Cybersecurity Services at Government Technology Agency of Singapore. Over 20 years experience in architecture with both end user and in the vendor space. And I'm still constantly getting certified and recertified in newer technologies. You can find out more about me on my website or my LinkedIn post. The URLs are found below. One of the reasons we're having this session is that the threat landscape is changing very fast. Technology is evolving at a breakneck speed, and security research has not kept up. People's attitude towards privacy is also changing. We have the young who have no qualms about giving up all their information to sites like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and so on. It is now easier than ever to do social engineering on people. Here are some numbers to show how bad it is. 70% of the most commonly used IoT devices have serious vulnerabilities. And we all know that IoT is on the increase with your IP cams at home and your smart speakers and so on. And now connected more than ever, and we have access to so much data at the fingertips. Looking at the data from this, 61% of all small businesses have experienced a cyber attack in the past 12 months. That's more than half. So security is everybody's business, not just large enterprises. Everybody needs to do their part to have a safer world. In terms of motivation, there are many reasons why we have cyber criminals. Financial gain is definitely top of the list. Most criminals today are after money. So it's no surprise that financial institutions are still the biggest target for criminals. The next group would be for revenge. This could be a disgruntled employee that got fired or a competitor who wants to improve his own business by taking you out. And in some cases, we've seen office romance go bad with one party wanting to take revenge on the other via cyber means. The third group would be the most dangerous by far. These are your state-sponsored actors. They have access to deep skills and deep pockets. These state-sponsored actors are responsible for many of the APTs found in your environment. And the last group, which would be your script kiddies. They don't really know what they're doing, but they are educated by YouTube and also from information they find from the dark web. It is now easy to create a ransomware just by following a step-by-step instructions found in some documents on the dark web. In the last 2 months alone, you would have read a lot of these cases in your mainstream media. Firstly was a high-profile data leak of the HIV information. Then we have the case of government employee credentials being sold on the dark web. McAfee also released a report earlier this year at RSA about Operation Sharpshooter. This was the case where allegedly North Korea has compromised some commercial servers to be used as a C2 server and infect people via Dropbox. And the latest, at the time of this recording, was the Norsk Hydro aluminium plant that got hit by ransomware. The cleanup cost has so far exceeded $40 million. So with all these threats, do you know where the hacker is? Well, he's probably sitting in a coffee shop near your office, listening to all your conversation. Social engineering is still the preferred way to get information about cases, technologies, networks, passwords, credentials, and so on. And his weapon of choice is your email system. that is still by far the largest way they get into your network. There are so much resources available online on how to do this. Inteltechniques.com, it's a site where you can learn how to perform social engineering to get information about anyone. Do be careful of your surroundings and of attempts to get information from you, especially phishing emails. Now, for all the engineers in the room, let me talk a little bit about Modbus and PLC attacks and so on. Industrial control systems and PLCs make use of multiple communication protocols, and some of these are pretty old. For example, most of you should be familiar with Modbus. It was developed in 1979. That makes it 40 years old today. The other two major protocols, Profinet and Profibus, also have their share of vulnerabilities, and these are exploited by criminals targeting systems. Now, just look at the picture on the right. On Shodan, you could easily just Google Schneider Electric and find all the PLCs that are exposed to the internet. This makes it very easy for criminals to find a way into the organization. So closer to home, instead of your power generation or power transmission, we go right to the end user with a smart meter. With the explosion of smart meter technology and IoT in general, we have many more attacks and hacks available online. One scenario where the UK government have identified is the hack of smart meters by criminals. What they would do is increase the power consumption reading on the smart meter and intercept the payment to the electric company. In this case, the power company collects the right amount of money and the consumer is paying more thinking it's the right amount, and the criminals pocket the difference. The other big concern is privacy. With smart meter having the ability to record very granular activities, they can actually do digital fingerprinting of your devices and behaviors and know exactly what's going on in your house, your pattern, and also how you're using a lot of your devices. Traditionally, a lot of security has been about preventing data leakage or preventing data theft. But in the case of an IoT sensor, for example, in this case, a temperature sensor, stealing information about the temperature isn't of great importance. I could just use a thermometer to get the reading. But what if all these sensors are used to control something else, for example, the refrigeration to keep your food fresh? Now, the bigger concern is data poisoning. Today, we have a lot of AI and machine learning systems that make use of data to come up with algorithms to control a lot of our industrial devices. If I skew your readings, it would skew your algorithms and cause major damage. This is similar to dropping a bit of dye into clear water. It's almost impossible to remove the dye completely or remove it without affecting the water source. This is the same in a big data environment. When you have huge data lakes and your sensors are compromised, it's very difficult to identify which is good data or bad data, or if it's been there for a period of time. This is the new danger in our new world. To help with some of these industrial system security, Singapore University of Technology and Design, where I also teach, have iTrust, the Center for Research in Cybersecurity. There is a full system set up with both transmission, generation, smart homes, and your microgrid. And this is a facility to allow researchers to test cyber attacks and also test protection mechanisms developed. There are now over 60 developers in this center. Now that I have mentioned most of the mainstream stuff, let's talk about some fun stuff. What are the 2019 hacks and news that did not make it to the mainstream media? First one, look at the top left picture. you see one of these pop-ups, they look familiar, doesn't it? Most of your websites today make use of Facebook ID or Google ID to authenticate you. And most of us are savvy enough to be trained to look at the URL to see that, okay, this is from www.facebook.com, so it must be legitimate. But criminals are getting smart. The URL is actually a picture. So just by glancing at it and checking out the URL, it's not sufficient anymore. Do pay attention to the pop-up. Is it a browser pop-up or is it a picture that's popping up? Moving on, we have a researcher attack an ultrasound system in a hospital. In this attack, they managed to retrieve a lot of ultrasound images together with patient information straight from the ultrasound machine. Today, many medical devices are very poorly protected, as security wasn't on top of their mind when they were building the systems. Next is something more dangerous. This is known as a polyglot attack, where executable code are hidden in images. So, just by visiting a website and you have advertising banners that pop up with images, they could be executing code on your browser. In this case, we found some JavaScript hidden in an advertisement. Now, this is not just restricted to pictures. Codes can be hidden in PDF files and so on. So just by opening some files, you could be executing code. This is known as a polyglot attack. Moving across, we have a proof of concept of an attack of your iPhone. Having a device still running iOS 10.1, if you visit this site and slide the slider at the bottom, it could take over your phone. The website is real, so if you have a 10.1 device, please do not slide the slider if you visit the website. Done. If you go to YouTube and search for Bloodhound 2.1, you can see a very elaborate video on how to use Bloodhound to take over someone's computer. And all these are freely available to people surfing the web. Another very sneaky attack is a compromised USB cable. Hackers can now put a controller in your USB adapter. In this case, if someone gave you a USB cable to connect your drive or charge your phone, they could, in essence, use Wi-Fi through the USB connector to take over your computer or record your keystrokes or mouse movement. And lastly, there is the mouse jack attack. This is an attack of sniffing your wireless connection. Now we're talking about keyboards and mouse with the wireless dongle. There are many attacks available that let you record all the keystrokes just by sitting near them. And even big brands like Logitech and Microsoft keyboards are affected. So far, this is still safe for Bluetooth keyboards and mouse, but in any case, wired connection is probably safer. Another thing to note, where is the weakest link? Well, the weakest link is probably the employee and his home. That's right. Hackers today are avoiding the fortress that is your company environment. So what do? They target key employees through their personal life and their home devices. Most homes today are poorly protected, and you wouldn't even know if someone has been in and out. Especially with connected NAS devices. Criminals today are often targeting the NAS as it stores a lot of information about work and not just your personal life. And targeting the kids is a very easy way. For example, compromising games that they download or install on their mobile devices. Most kids will not read a lot of the warnings, or they say if I need access to your drive or camera or microphone that you get on your phones, most kids will just click okay and try to get to gameplay as soon as possible. Be very careful the source of free games and what you let your kids install on your computers or mobile devices. So, what can you do? Well, firstly, do not record your passwords and paste it on post-its. It's like leaving your key in your door. Having a lock would be useless if your key is available. Similarly, having a password would be useless if you leave it lying around in a plain text file or on a post-it. do treat your password like underwear. Change it often and do not share. And do not use the same password for every site. A good resource for you is the Have I Been Pawned website. You can put in your email address and see if the information has been leaked or the password has been compromised and so on. So please try to use different passwords for different sites and if possible even different credentials. This would prevent data from being leaked if one site is compromised. Check your home devices. Are you using default passwords on your routers, your IP cameras, your switches, and so on? Make sure that you're sufficiently secure and do check them regularly for patches and firmware updates. And also be very careful of free Wi-Fi. Most of them are not trustworthy and could be recording your data as you use them. If you have to, please try to use a VPN service. In today's world, you got to try to think like a hacker. Try to think about ways people would misuse or abuse your system. Now, for the engineers out there or the requirements analysts out there, let me run through an example of how we would do this. In this example, I'll talk a little bit about misuse case. So for example, when you're designing a vehicle, the first requirement is, well, the driver needs to drive the car, right? But you should not stop there. You should think about, what if I'm a car thief? I would want to steal the car, which would prevent you from driving the car. So this would force me to think of another case. Now I have to think about how to lock the car to steal the car. And we think again, what if the car is locked? Well, I can still short the ignition to lock the car. Now, the engineer has to think about how to lock the transmission in case someone short the ignition, and so on. So this goes on till you can identify all the various misuse cases. It's a good way to help you think about what's the worst that could happen and help you think a little bit deeper about security and how you could be compromised. I encourage all of you to read more about this and attend some classes on this. So hopefully that was an interesting presentation for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you and hope to see you all again soon. Bye.